of the turnovers and the changes in employee contracts. So this has been a difficult financial or unemployment time, high unemployment time, and a difficult time for me to keep my staffing levels at what we would consider a normal staffing level in child support. So I've had a lot of salary savings, and over the last couple of years, I have not been able to spend my entire allocation because of that. What I contribute most of it to the salary savings. And like I said, unlike most departments or programs that are county general funded, the money that I don't spend actually goes back to the state. So back to my building. I get the call, I have space, I have computers, I have workstations, and I have desks, cubbies that are empty. Even whether I have Tehama County staff there or not, I have to turn on the lights every day, and the electricity, the air conditioner is running. So there's a negligible cost for me to have them there. Even if I were to calculate a per person cost, if I took my lease and all my network charges and my electrical costs and I divided that and decided to go ahead and charge Tehama County Child Support for their time in the building, and the state agreed to transfer the money to Shasta County, it is highly unlikely that I would be able to spend that money by the end of this federal fiscal or state fiscal year. Therefore, again, the money just goes back to the state general fund and out of the hands of Tehama County, who actually needs it. So recognizing that I have an obligation to this county, and I tried to come up with a different plan to house these people that would benefit by program locally here. One of the things is the state of California or the federal government requires that child support meet certain federal performance measures. One of the measures that I can get a benefit from is my cost effectiveness. Cost effectiveness is calculated by what my expenditures are each year to my annual distributed collections. So I contacted the State Department of Child Support Services, asked them if they would be willing to give me a cost effectiveness credit at the end of federal fiscal year, this federal fiscal year, and again next federal fiscal year if I have Tehama County staff still in my building during that time, and they agreed. Today, as I meet with you, the Tehama County Child Support Supervisor is meeting with the Tehama County Board of Supervisors and has found space in Red Bluff and is asking for a lease agreement to be approved. So we anticipate the Red Bluff or Tehama County staff would be out of my building probably around the end of October, possibly sooner. So that is the reason that I bring this contract to you, or lease agreement to you, with no cost or no charges to Tehama County. So do you have any questions for me?
Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chair Modi, and thank you, Director Love, for the presentation. I guess I have to kind of restate the obvious. You pointed to one of the challenges of using the resources made available to you from the other side on behalf of the people of the state of California who are spending less money. I think that's a great thing. So I guess the obvious would be the decisions by the Shasta County Board of Supervisors that have maintained and reduced costs are saving all of the state of California money. So I say let California show the state of California, or let Shasta County show the state of California how to maybe perhaps manage their dollars better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Keough.
Thank you, Chairman Modi. I have a question of County Council. Section 9.1 is the indemnification clause, and I appreciate the fact that you put that in there, but I'm not sure I understand the logic of having clause 9.2 where Shasta indemnifies Tehama County and holds them harmless. When I look at 9.1 in juxtaposition with 9.2, I'm failing to see the logic there.
What's the nature of the indemnification clause? It's basically is a mutual indemnification clause, which is fairly standard between two governmental entities. Essentially, what Tehama County is doing is that they will indemnify Shasta County from any damages caused by its employees and agents. And at the same time, if Shasta County does something that would somehow, by its employees, that would somehow result in damage to Tehama County, then Tehama County could obtain coverage in that regard from actions by a county employee. So basically what it does is it allocates the risk so that we're responsible for our employees, they're responsible for their employees.
So by way of example then, if Tehama County employee came into the building and one of our employees had left a telephone cord in a walkway and that individual tripped over that cord, broke their leg, we would be responsible for the medical costs and any other rehab costs that might exist? No coaching. Perhaps
I
you're
would
not
say,
prepared to
yeah.
address a question like that. That's
Yeah, I mean, certainly there would be, depending upon the situation and all the facts, obviously a Tehama County employee who's injured would be subject to workers' compensation, which would be, in most cases, that's their exclusive remedy. Whether or not Tehama County would then try to come against the Shasta County in that situation, we would take further review in that regard, but I do not believe that's the intent of these indemnification provisions.
Okay.
Supervisor Hawes.
I'm going to move approval. I think it's a nice gesture and neighborly thing to do.
Second. Oh, excuse me.
Moved and seconded. Under discussion? I have some discussion. I think it's the right decision for the wrong reasons. I'm a little disappointed. I absolutely think we should try to help Tehama County out. They have a difficult situation, and we're able to do that. And I think that's great that we're doing it. And I get the part about no rent for us because, quite frankly, it's state and federal money. It's not our money. And so whether they pay it to Shasta County or Tehama County, I don't think it makes any difference. I agree with Supervisor Ball. I was going to say the same thing. I don't subscribe to this theory of spend it or lose it. I'm almost disappointed that you even said that. Quite frankly, if we need the money, we should spend it. If we don't, we shouldn't spend it. We should send it back to the state, and maybe if the rest of the counties did that, maybe we'd be in better shape. I don't like the idea of, well, I got to spend it or else. I'm just disappointed you said that, quite frankly. So. Okay. Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
You can see, though, here we don't spend it all sometimes, so we are doing the right thing. It's good stuff.
Moving to R6, agreement with Child Abuse Prevention Coordinating Council for AmeriCorps Member Services for Juvenile Probation. Chief Foreman.
Chairman Modi, members of the board, Wes Foreman, Chief Probation Officer. I'll just start by saying a few comments and then stop and ask for your approval. Probation is rather excited with the opportunity to use parent partners and skill builders in two of our child-specific programs. Child Family Services has had the access to parent partners and skill builders in the past. This became new to us. And so it's an opportunity for us to enhance some of the services that we do in the WINGS program. The WINGS program, I don't have the explanation out here. I have it in the board report someplace, but primarily the WINGS program is a program that prevents placement of mentally ill offenders. What we do is we surround staff from mental health, from the probation department, and what we try to do is wrap services around them to prevent their need from going into placement. This year, well, let me explain the parent project as well. The parent project is another program that will benefit from a parent partner. The parent project is a probation-generated program. It's considered proven effective. It's a program where actually we partner with the parents of offending individuals. We help retrain them with the idea of gaining control back of their children, their teenagers specifically. It's a program now that we've been doing for several years. We just had a graduation of the 8th program. There are 20 or more parents that go through each of these programs, and the graduations are actually pretty exciting to see the change in the parents and the thank yous that they give to us for finally finding a way to partner with them to help. The funding for these individuals, 2.5 employees, is coming from the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act. We received an additional funding amount this year, which allowed us to expand these programs. Specifically, what the parent partners and skill builders do is that they provide a bridge between the parents and the individuals and the agency. Sometimes, many times, maybe most of the time, we enter into a child and family's life that has, the child has committed a crime, and initially there's some resistance and some concern about whether we're out to hurt the family, hurt their child. And so what the parent partners and skill builders do is they bridge the gap, because many of these individuals have actually either been in the system or have had children in the system, and by going through that experience and coming out in a positive way, they become very good advocates to help bridge between the agency and these families, and it actually enhances and increases our ability to succeed at what we want to do. So with that, I'll ask for your approval and take some questions as well.
Questions of staff? Pleasure of the board.
Move approval.
Second?
Moved and second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. We're now going to move to R7, which is receive a presentation from the Chief Probation Officer on the Community Corrections Partnership Executive Community Partnership Plan. So do you need some time to set up for this, Chief? Or
It looks like it's pretty good. If we just see if it goes to the...
Looks like you're in business.
Okay. So again, Chairman Modi, members of the board, Chief Probation Officer, my name is Wes Foreman. Today, again, we're going to be talking about public safety realignment, and as Marta mentioned, this is offender specific. Today's presentation will include some summary of our current 12-13 update plan. As a point of reference, I reminded the board that public safety realignment is the most significant change in criminal justice in quite some time. We're receiving little money from the state to do a big job. There will be no success if we attempt to duplicate what the state system was or is. We must do better with less resources. Basically, AB 109 was to transfer responsibility for supervision of incarceration. Transfer responsibility for supervision, incarceration, and revocations specific to low-level parolees and prison inmates from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to county jurisdiction. This is the current makeup of the Community Correction Partnership. The partnership has very passionate members. We spend at least monthly meeting, and in the past 3 months we have met quite often, more than once in a week. The plan was very important to us, and I can assure you that all of their ideas and concerns were expressed willingly and passionately during the meetings. What you'll see during this report, or this presentation, is that there is actually little change in the plan, little change in the plan components. Mostly what you'll see a change in is the increase in budget to reflect a full-year operating cost and the cost of a growing population. We also added targets and timelines. I think you can loosely refer to these as performance measures. And we also added a focus area on collecting data. When we started our first realignment plan, there were several concerns, challenges that became very evident to us. We were concerned about whether the offenders from prison were going to show up. We thought that maybe they would take their $200 that they received, called gate fees, and just take off someplace else and never be around anymore. We were concerned about what were the numbers of supervision. We were concerned about the impacts Some of them we thought we knew, some of them we didn't think we knew. We were concerned about the profile of the offender, which led to, do we have the kind of programs and services in Shasta County that we needed? We were also concerned about our ability to provide staff. What we found out is that they showed up. In Shasta County, through March, 2.9% only did not show up. The state average was 7.1% that didn't show up. So they began to show up. Their concern about them taking the $200 and going someplace else did not prove true. We were concerned about what the state projections were. What we found out was that there were more post-release community supervision individuals, those coming from prison to us. More of those came to us in the first 9 months. Less of those sentenced to local prison and mandatory supervision, but that number is consistent with the North State counties. Currently, between the two populations, the post-release community supervision and the local prison mandatory supervision, that probation is supervising, that number is 300 at the end of July. These next two slides are slides that you've seen before. They are now from the beginning in October through the end of July, and it graphically shows that we received far more actual offenders than what the state projected. What is important to note, however, in the last 2 months, the actuals are actually under the projections of the state. Now, whether that is will continue or not, we'll have to see. But it is expected that that big spike that you see in December, January, February, and March, because of an anomaly in what the projections were from the state, we expected that jump, and we did think that it would begin to level off with their projections. So although the 2 months that I pointed out are under that, we expect them to be fairly consistent with their projections going forward. In the local prison and mandatory supervision impacts, the opposite was true. The actuals are far less than the projections. Now, there are potentially some reasons for that, which I'll share a little bit later. We do expect that as our population increases and the courts get more familiar with the sentencing, and as we make a better, if we begin to reduce the failures to appear in court, we do expect that the local prison and the mandatory supervision numbers will increase. We now know a little bit more about the profile of the offender. These areas that I've highlighted here are some of those that we're collecting. What we know now is that 83% are male. What we understand is that we have a target population of homeless of about 15%. The star refers to, there's another slide later on that I'll explain that a little bit. 78% per our static risk assessment are considered high risk, and that is taken into account static information such as the age when they committed their first crime, what the current crime, the level of the crime, the current offense that they're in for, history, how many crimes have they committed in the past, how many times they've been in some kind of custody situation. All those are considered in determining high risk. 78% is that number. 69% are considered antisocial, have a high rate of antisocial behaviors as determined by the Offender Needs Guide. 77% lack employment and fiscal stability by the same guide. And 76 substance abuse concerned are indicated by the same guide. What we also know is that with the population, now 20% of those, with the help of our mental health clinician, have needed mental health services, and 23% have needed alcohol and drug services. In regards to the homeless population, probation had some difficulty in the beginning defining what it was, and we wanted to track how many of these individuals would be homeless. Our definition at the time, so we could track it in our data monitoring system, was in the last 30 days, have you been homeless? And we ask all of our offenders that, and then we record that. Then we have a number that comes up in the computer, and that number that's been coming up is about 15%. That was a little concern to the committee, so we actually did a more expanded study to find out what that population was going to be. The definition that came up out of that study is what you see there in front of you. It's definitely a more expanded, definition. It takes a little bit more time to decipher through that. But essentially, it reinforces the fact are people without a home that they either own legally, rent legally, have the ability to stay in without jeopardizing somebody's lease. They're not staying in a tent. In other words, we don't want them in some place that we consider kind of an inappropriate home. But it addresses all those things a little bit more specifically. In that study, that number came up to 14%. So in the two ways that we've studied it, our numbers are around 15% right now, and that's the percent of the population that we're going to target to try to find some services for, to eliminate the homeless problem or the transitional housing. In regard to criminogenic needs, it's quite often asked what that means because criminogenic is a new term. So that first bullet refers to the definition. It is a risk factor or an attribute of an offender that is directly linked to their criminal behavior. Now it's a little funny the way that I organized this, top 4 and the big 8. The big 8 refers to all of them, so it's all 8 of them. The top 4 obviously are the most concerning to the researchers in terms of factors and attributes that contribute to criminal behavior. And as, without going back to the slide, I will point out that the top one in the top 4 was the antisocial personality. And then in the bottom 8, the big 8 there, the lack of employment, financial stability, and substance abuse were important indicators. What we're being told now as we're managing offender populations is that the most common way to address their service needs is to approach the lower 4, okay? Come up with programs to manage their employment and financial instability. Send them to substance abuse programs. Find a way to educate them. That's the most easy way to manage and most quick way to manage their services. But what research is saying is that if you don't change their criminal thinking, if you don't try to affect who they're associating with and the indicators for their antisocial personality and behaviors, you will not be successful with all the programs in the below. So we're spending more time right now in finding services for the top 4. This is an indication of one of the unexpected outcomes that we are now paying attention to. When I represented in the past, in the beginning, was that public safety realignment wasn't that bad. I was referring to the number of individuals we're supervising, whether we have enough probation officers to supervise them, whether they're reoffending, whether they're violating the terms and conditions. What was quickly responded to was that, well, wait a minute, the community is not seeing that. They're they're feeling that there is more crime, they're not safe, and so it was a big concern. As we began to evaluate the bookings in the jail, what showed up was these numbers. The higher numbers are the bookings that are the result of those that are still on parole. The lower numbers are the numbers that are related to the bookings that are under probation supervision or the county supervision, mostly the post-release community supervision. You'll see a huge gap in that, which indicated that, that perhaps those that are out there offending in the community still, most likely is the parole offenders. The numbers are extremely low yet in the post-release community supervision numbers. And so, we can see the discrepancy, we can understand why the community is concerned, but this gave us a little bit of understanding of where the impacts are coming from. Now, in the past, you've asked for that group, the lower group, how many of those bookings are related to actual committing new crimes. Now, what I can say there is the numbers that are presented there. Let me catch up with my slides here. The numbers beginning with the 10 and ending with 14 on the lower bars there totals 70 bookings. Now these bookings, I will say, are not just individuals. They could be repeat bookings. If someone was booked in and they were released, commit another crime, they could go back in. So these are total number of bookings, not individuals. Related to these bookings, though, 33 of them were a result of new criminal charges. So when you use that number, it's about 47%. So 47% of the post-release community supervisions, that individuals that are being booked into the jail are being booked in for new criminal charges. When you use the ratio in the number of how many we're supervising right now, at the end of June we were supervising 277, 33 individuals committing new crimes, or 33 bookings related to new crimes. That goes down to approximately 4%. So when you look at it that way, it's still quite a low number. This is another slide that I've been presenting to you. What we want to track is what kind of impacts on probation for revocations. These are just numbers. It's too early to tell exactly what they're going to say yet. We do expect that as the population increases, that the actual numbers will continue to increase. So the number in July is an anomaly in what is expected. A better measure, which we'll probably start reporting on next month, is a % of those that we're supervising are actually in revocation. That may give us a better indicator of whether we're reducing revocations, which would be one of our goals. Court failures, or failures to show up in court, was another unexpected indication of problems that we were not aware of in the beginning. What this slide will show you, two bars. The top bar, the highest bar, the redder bar, is the total number of failures to appear. They could be a failure to appear on one individual, could have more failures to appear. The bottom bar actually refers to the number of defendants. No matter which way you look at it, the number is continuing to grow. When this came to our awareness, we still did not have the third floor of the jail open, and we did not have the ability to contract with other counties for bed space. Both of those issues have been taken care of, and what we're hoping is that by taking those solutions, that will eventually see this number to begin to decline. This is for probation specifically. Just wanted to give you an indication that one of the other things that was concerned to us is whether we're going to be able to hire enough staff to manage this population. I'm just going to continue to indicate that hiring staff has been more difficult than we expected. We have promoted, hired, and transferred individuals within the department and a few from outside to fill positions. We are managing the population, but it's not without some toll on the rest of the department. We've hired 3 new probation officers since October. We have 3 more that are real close to being hired right now. They're in the just past final stages of the process, and we should have them hired by the end of September. Just as an example of what the impact in the probation department has been, we currently have 16 deputy probation officer vacancies. And so when you have a juvenile division and an adult division, with you have that many vacancies in there, then we're suffering quite a lot. When you add realignment to that and the more impacts, then our challenges increase. Also in that our allocations for positions is not only for deputy probation officers. We actually have 6 or 7 positions that we are hiring for. Many of those are also from promotions that we're able to move people up the chain, which is exciting for some of our staff. But as you hire somebody, for instance, a probation assistant can be hired to be a deputy probation officer. When we do that, then we create another hole and a probation assistant. So it's just one of the other challenges that we're facing. Get specifically to the realignment plan, what you'll notice, as I said before, is that the plan is roughly the same. The 3 components are essentially the same. In supervision, the primary responsibility for supervision relies on the probation department. We have, with this plan, an increase of 5 additional staff that will bring our total to 22 allocations with your approval today. We're also recommending a probation division manager that would actually raise the number to 23. We are setting a target for ourselves, and you'll see the targets and the timelines intermixed in these slides here, to have all of our staff hired by the end of June 13. For the compliance team, we are in the plan. We are moving from overtime. We spent mostly time not hiring staff, but using overtime to facilitate the compliance team activities. This year, we are hoping to move to hiring full-time staff so that we can have full-time activity in this area. This would amount to 4 3/4 staff. And it seems kind of weird that you have 3/4 staff, but typically that means that there's some other resources to help out. Our target and timeline, one of the targets and timeline will be to have twice monthly significant compliance checks. Now, this is above and beyond what their daily activities will be. In the custody and custody alternatives section, under the jail, our attempt was to get the third floor open and potentially have some other contract beds available. I'm happy to announce that those have both been accomplished, and the sheriff will have some comments a little bit later on. In the work release program, this plan calls for moving from 200 to 500. This is an attempt to provide additional capacity type of bed space so that we can more effectively use what is in custody and what is not in custody, but hold people accountable. That will increase the sheriff's staff by 7 full-time people, and the goal or the target timeline is to have the work release program incrementally grown up to 500 by the end of June. In the home electronic confinement program, we quickly found out that our current landlines, we have 100 units that are, you have to activate with the use of a hard phone line. And as you know, that there's a lot of individuals that don't own phone lines anymore. Many are moving to cell phones. And so that was one of the concerns, one of the handicaps we had for bringing this program up to full speed. We are now planning to invest in global positioning devices, that's GPS, and those will give us better access. We received this allocation for full-time staff in last year's plan. We will be continuing that. Our targets and timelines is we expect to have the GPS units by 11/1, and that program will be consistently running at 90% capacity by the end of June. And we also want to create a supervised pretrial release program. The sheriff and the probation department made a trip to Santa Cruz to see their pretrial release program. It became something that we were very interested in. We're pursuing the protocols and procedures around that and want to implement that as soon as we can. This may be something that will require some additional resources, but we have to evaluate that further. Under programs and services, the Community Correction Partner, the Community Correction Center is closer to being opened as we speak. In particular, for it includes the Day Report Center. In the Day Report Center, in this current plan, we've asked to move it from 50 to 100 individuals. That's by and large related to the expected increase in population. We are targeting the address at 1405, 1423 Court Street. We are actively working with Behavioral Interventions. We refer to them as BI to finish the contracting. We'll have that done by 1st of November. And with that, we want to have the lease agreement signed by the 1st of November as well. If we get it done by that time, we expect to be open January 31st. In regards to contracting, you will see a major increase in program and service contracts before the end of the year. This was an addition to our plan as well. This slide will just represent the focus areas and the goals of what we're trying to do. So you'll see there are about 4 focus areas, the top one being recidivism. I have mentioned in the past a recidivism measure that the probation department is evaluating. There are also other recidivism measures. Recidivism is a difficult thing to grab onto. For instance, one about the number of arrests for individuals. All those will be monitored as well. The idea is that we want to reduce arrests and criminal convictions. In the area of offender populations, we want to make sure that we have adequate supervision. In the jail and contract beds, we want to have adequate space and reduce inappropriate releases. Under the court failures to appear, we want to reduce those failures to appear and increases cases getting to sentencing. If we get them to sentencing, then we can actually do some of the programs and monitoring that the probation department has been working on with those that we have right now, and so this will increase our ability to make a difference in this population. Revocations, we want to reduce the rate of revocation hearings. We want to increase the rate of successful terminations. We will see more of those now that we're actually 10 months into this plan. The legislation allows for terminations at 6 months for extremely successful behaved individuals, allows for some terminations, successful ones, at 1 year, and all of the individuals coming out of prison can only stay on supervision for 3 years. In the area of program attendance, successes and failures, we want a high attendance rate in our programs, and obviously we want more successes than failures. This is the budget that we have submitted to you. Down below the line, or actually above the line, is the total amount of the budget for all the things that are in the plan and some of those that I've mentioned today. How we got there was that we're expecting, the second line from the bottom, we're expecting 6 million, 0.2 plus to come to us this year. We had some unallocated or unspent allocations from the first year, so we combined some of that to make up the budget for this year, which is a 7.6. And it is anticipated at the end of the year that we will have a little over $800 left for future years. So that concludes my part of the presentation. I do know that Sheriff Pasenko has some presentation, and there are other members of the committee here in case you want to ask some questions or have them make comments as well.
Good morning, Tom Pasenko, Sheriff. This will be an update on our monthly 109 information that we have. The floor of the jail is open and fully operational. That provides about 128 beds for inmates. And it's going to be used in a little bit different fashion, where we're going to be using it for the failure to appear, so we can get them into court. Also for our work release failures, we call them FTCs, for failure to complete the work program, and also working in partnership with probation if they have what they call a flash incarceration, and that is a person that can be housed for up to 10 days if they're not within the terms of their probation. We just given a correctional officer, another correctional officer, a job offer yesterday. We're in the process that we have currently 91 applicants that participated in a physical agility test recently. They had completed before that. A number of them had completed the written examination, and then these individuals that passed the physical agility will be coming up on oral interviews and then placed on an eligibility list. We do have about 9 vacancies to fill for the correctional officer, and that's primarily for the work release program. We are giving a test also for Sheriff's Service Officer. The applicants had completed a written examination recently, and then oral panels are coming up in the mid part of September. We have to fill 3 vacancies there. And the service officers perform kind of clerical booking, inmate movement within the jail through use of electronic doors and have them opening there. Okay, a little bit of a malfunction here. Had that lock up, and maybe you can free that up, and I can go to the other slides through an overhead. Yeah, see, it's real. Go ahead and go to the overhead. We can work it that way.
Just manually type.
Oh,
You can pick
okay.
each one individually.
This is our jail hierarchy, and that's a current snapshot we have incarcerated at the jail. As you can see, we have about 27 people in for various forms of homicide, another 64 between robbery and assault. The flash incarcerations that I talked about is only 5. We do have a number that are serving time for probation violations, about 40 for drug-related crimes. Domestic violence and burglary take up about another 50. And these are people that can't be let out. Those are your more violent offenders that we have there. And that's what basically causes the capacity releases. We have a total capacity of 381. There you have a snapshot of about 280 inmates. The multi-year sentences are also going to be continuing as they get sentenced in court. Currently, we have about 42 inmates that are serving multi-year sentences, with the maximum right now at 10 years and then followed up by 8 years, and you can see the breakdown there. That is going to be a very big concern because I know in other counties throughout the state, some are serving nearly 30-year sentences. There's one in Southern California, 2 in Southern California, different counties, one serving a 28-year sentence, another one serving a 23-year sentence. Our jails and our county system simply were not designed for those long-term incarcerations like we're seeing under AB 109 sentencing. The compliance team goes out twice weekly. They have the compliance checks that's conducted in July. We made 92 contacts. 17 of those were for AB 109. They did the searches. They ended up with 7 arrests. 3 of those were 109ers with one violation, a warrant arrest, and a fresh arrest for drug charges. And then they attempted contacts. Some of the addresses that we do get are incorrect due to them providing false information, or the person simply wasn't there. The contract beds, as you know, you've approved some contracts recently with El Dorado County and Lassen County. That was a result of a change in the law in July that allowed sheriffs to contract with other counties for bed space of non-contiguous counties. Before that, we had to contract with contiguous counties. The only sheriff that had room was Lassen County. Those beds are going to be in short supply because other sheriffs are also looking for them. We do have contracts in place with El Dorado and Lassen, and on Friday, August 17th, we shipped out about 7 sentenced male inmates to El Dorado County, and they're serving days from 37 days out to 224 days. And then we'll be shipping about 5 over to Lassen County. Again, those will be sentenced inmates, freeing up some bed space. And those are some of the people that have been non-compliant for failure to complete in the work program. We are currently working with Nevada County, who has some beds available, slightly closer than El Dorado County. And we're also exploring a contract with Del Norte County, who has some minimal amount of beds, and still looking at the possibility of Alameda County, albeit we're still working with their county council on the indemnification part that is causing some concern. The work release program had been up to about 190. There was about 50 that had been failing to complete the work program. Those were recently issued warrants, so we're at 140 on the program now. We want to expand out, as Chief Foreman noted earlier, to 500, but there are about 500 inmates also for failing to complete the warrants. And we went out on a recent warrant sweep, picked up a few of those that are on the failing to complete the work program, and we're going to be doing one here shortly again, and those people end up being shipped out of county. When we have a more efficient and better home electronic monitoring program, other than landline, when that gets going, we'll be putting many of those people on home electronic monitoring that have been failing to complete or failing to show up as another means. And then for some of those other individuals that may not be able to work due to disabilities or medical conditions, they can also be under house arrest and be confined to their home under home electronic monitoring. Most of those that are currently on our work programs on what we call a report card system, they are required to report to different locations such as the Northern California Veterans Cemetery, Salvation Army, and City of Redding, in addition to the County of Shasta, working with those agencies there. And then if they don't show up, that can become a violation. The plan, as described earlier, we plan to expand out to 500 inmates with the staffing and get that back up and going, and we're going to have better accountability with the home electronic confinement and supervision part of it from that. That concludes my presentation. And then Chief Foreman, you have additional slides to go to or not? Okay. Any questions for me?
Apparently not at this time.
Thank you.
Does that conclude the presentation?
That concludes the official presentation, and so we're here to answer any questions. And like I said before, there's some other committee members here in case you want to address them.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Supervisor Ball.
Thank you, Chair Modi. And thank you, Chief Foreman, and thank you also, Sheriff Pasenko, for the great presentation. And Chief, as I confirmed earlier before the meeting, you had read my comments in the local record searchlight. Before I go to those thoughts, I will go to the distinctly positive, and I will have a couple questions for you. I appreciate the direction of the report in terms of the targets and the timelines and the intent on the hiring of the staff. As I look at the report, one of the things that comes out real clearly is that you have the hope of reduced recidivism rates through being able to provide programs and services. And so I end up with 3 points of concern. The programs and services obviously need to become available. They are largely dependent upon the facility that you hope to put in place, and both of those are dependent upon a person to direct or manage the operations so that we can move it on, as well as the staff that you intend to continue to either promote or hire. So first question, and if I've stated that wrong, please feel free to correct and tell me where I'm missing the thought here. With the manager, is that manager the person that is listed in item number R8 as probation division director? Is that the position to manage AB 109, or is
Yes.
that something else?
No, that's the position. We did some work in terms of how we could fill that position, knowing that this was a request of the board. We had actually thought about that earlier, and actually it was mentioned to have more management and probation when the first plan came about. We at that time, specifically in probation, decided that we wanted to focus our services, focus our money in the services rather than to be in the management area. That turned out to be somewhat difficult because the energy it took to put all these things together was pretty taxing on all of us in probation. So to fill that position, we looked at potentially a project manager. I'm not sure what the other names were. There was some kind of analyst. What we found out is that the positions available in the county were positions that actually paid more than my divisions managers, which I'll have to admit right at this point was a little concerning to me, that my division managers were getting less pay than some of these other positions. But as it turned out, that the best position in our hierarchy was a probation division manager, and so that is the request, and that it will be specifically for realignment. And as we move forward, we certainly will have enough staff hired that we could afford another division director in our probation staffing pattern.
Great, and you answered my next question, and whether that was a dedicated position or not, and you're saying that absolutely is. They'll be working exclusively on AB 109?
Definitely initially. There may be some adjustments later on because of the number of staff. We might have to divide the chores. What the difficulty in our structure is that we will have 2 division managers in one division where we only have one in the others, and it's going to take some evaluation in terms of how we divide out the chores in that division eventually, but initially it's all going to be dedicated for realignment.
Well, consistent with my comments to Ms. Schulman, when will you be able to fill that position, assuming we approve it in the next action item?
Currently, I have plans to consider an internal appointment, and so that would happen almost immediately.
Very good. And then the next question, facility, you've indicated December, January. Is there a possibility that process can be sped up?
Yes. So any of those dates are just target dates. Hopefully, we're targeting a little bit with a little cushion, and if we can push the contracting with BI and get the lease agreement signed with the landlord, the only thing that will hold us back is any kind of improvements that might necessarily be made for that property, and then it's a matter of just within 60 days, BI can be up and running. From the probation's point of view, our staff that are going to be there and other individuals that are working with us, like the clinician, we would be ready to move as soon as the facility was available. We could move into that building.
And then you mentioned programs that you intend to assign or create additional contracts and services as soon as possible. Are they entirely dependent upon that facility, or can some of those services begin now?
No, they're not. I mean, obviously, we're at a handicap without having the assessment center and the special services that the day report center will have. But the basic difference between that is that for all the offenders that we can actually refer to programs and treatments, that we expect them to show up and participate, that's where we're going to send them. That's what we're currently doing right now. The Day Report Center is a focused, intense program for those individuals that we don't want to lose by making a referral someplace else. And so we have an intense group of individuals right now that are handicapped because we don't have that. Once we get it up and running, then that 100 individuals will be reporting daily to the Day Report Center, and then there will be the focus and concentrated services and programs that that agency provides.
Thank you, Chief Foreman.
And I do want to say one other thing is that there will be a lot of additional contracts coming your way by the end of the year, but I assure you that these individuals are being served. With your allowance of my ability to provide services, have agencies invoice to me with a cap of $5,000, we have a lot of agencies that are already providing services, and we are making referrals. We have a team of individuals that are identifying their needs, their readiness for services, and we're making, we're sending people to programs right now. We're serving the population.
Thank you.
Other questions? Supervisor Kehoe?
Thank you, Chairman Modi. I have some observations. Many of us attended the workshop that the Reading City Council put on, and I think City Manager Kurt Starman summarized it adequately when he said that AB 109 was created by the state legislature for the benefit of the state of California, certainly not local communities. And I think, in my mind, based upon my reading of that legislation created by the state, that there is a fundamental flaw in that legislation. And it is simply this: there is no clear line of authority as to who is running the implementation of AB 109. From my perspective, there is no one in charge. Now, AB 109 created an executive committee. The staff report lists those names. As we've mentioned before, there are only 2 people on the 7-person committee that report directly to the CEO and in turn the Board of Supervisors. The rest of the individuals are either independently elected officials or represent the presiding judge of the Superior Court. Their role, as defined by this plan, is as follows. The Executive Committee of the CCP is responsible for developing the plan for implementing AB 109, overseeing the realignment process, and implementing the local plan. The CCP Executive Committee recommends the plan to the Board of Supervisors and is responsible for advising the Board of Supervisors regarding funding and implementation of the plan. I've spoken to a couple of members of the Executive Committee, and in their mind, they do not have the authority or the inclination to make major decisions that impact other departments, such as, let's use the example of the sheriff. In reading the legislation, it becomes clear that the Board of Supervisors has a limited role in the implementation of AB 109. So to place this in perspective, for FY 12-13, it is anticipated that we will spend $7,653,543. Yet, who is in charge? Who is to be held accountable for the wise and judicious expenditures of those dollars? Now, the engine that drives AB 109 in Shasta County is this plan. I personally find that engine to be short on fuel. Let me give you 2 examples. For months now, this board has expressed concern and has spoken to the pressing need for accountability and timely execution of actions. Regrettably, this has not occurred on any significant and sustained fashion. By way of example, on 7/31/12, in response to a request by this Board of Supervisors of the CEO, he provided us with a report on what was happening in 109. There were 6 recommendations. The first concerned the Community Corrections Partnership Executive Committee consider using AB 109 revenue to hire a temporary realignment administrator to coordinate and oversee the implementation of AB 109 in Shasta County. To my knowledge, that has not been done, although you have made progress within your department, and I applaud you for that, Mr. Foreman. 2 things have been accomplished, much to the credit of the Executive Committee. Item 2, CCPEC identifies specific timeline and steps to be taken to open the Community Corrections Center, which includes the Assessment Center and Day Reporting Center, and report the progress weekly to the CEO, and I believe you have done that, and we are making progress in that arena. There was a recommendation relative to opening the floor of the jail and to developing contracts for exporting prisoners. The sheriff has done that. The 4th recommendation was the CEO to meet with the presiding judge to discuss developing clear performance standards, goals, and measurements for the Chief Probation Officer's performance and AB 109 implementation performance standards, goals, and measurements. And I will leave it up to Mr. Lees to discuss that. Mr. Modi, Supervisor Modi, recommended that the Executive Board consider appointing a co-chair to assist the CPO with meetings and CCP plan development and implementation, and I don't believe that has occurred yet. And finally, I made the recommendation that the Executive Board develop specific performance standards, goals, and measurements for the implementation of AB 109 in Shasta County and report the progress monthly to the board, and I do not believe that that has taken place. What has taken place? Well, let me tell you this. Ms. McKinsey has put together, and she is a member of the executive committee, she has put together a list of recommendations relative to performance measurements for the 12-13 Public Safety Realignment Plan. To my knowledge, the Executive Board, the Executive Committee has not embraced these. They're already written out. This is a simple thing to do. It is also my understanding that Chief Paletti has done the same. I don't know if those have been embraced as yet. A second area of concern to me is fiscal accountability. And I refer you to page 28 of this plan. What we're talking about here is other programs and services. And it is expected in 12-13 that $1,264,500 will be expended on other programs and services. And what I have a difficulty with here is the write-up. And it reads as follows. Many other services will be needed to meet the, how do you pronounce that word? Criminogenic?
Criminogenic.
Thank you. Needs and risks of this population. The CCP will continue to identify resources to meet those needs. Therefore, and Mr. Foreman has spoken to this, therefore, decision-making flexibility, initial sole source contractual agreements with both existing and local and/or providers and claims vendor payments options will be necessary to enhance the CCP's ability to provide services and implement programs quickly. And then they list some of the services. So when I take that paragraph and I place it in juxtaposition with reality, namely that the Board of Supervisors has initially approved the plan on September 27, 2011, and so I see no great urgency here in implementing this particular provision. Why not introduce competition by way of an RFP to make these services happen? It seems out of place given that we've been involved in this for a long period of time, since 2011. And I think I'll stop there, Mr. Modi.
Thank you, Supervisor Kehoe. Other members? Then I'll take my shot. Although Supervisor Kehoe has covered a number of the areas. I'd like to go to page 12 of your plan. And in the middle of that page is a paragraph that says the CCP Executive Committee recommends that the committee have the flexibility to allocate unspent funds during any fiscal year to any program and/or component of the plan as approved by the Executive Committee and the Board of Supervisors through a budget amendment. So I'm not quite sure, I'm trying to make sure clarification. Is that to mean that if you were to change your plan here, you would come back to the supervisors for a budget amendment?
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, what it means basically is that we're continually evaluating, and where changes need to be made, we want to have the flexibility, and we would bring that back to the board to make those changes.
Great. I have no problem with you having flexibility to change your program as you need. So I'll put it right here on the record that it will come back to the board for a budget amendment before you would do that. That's what you're saying here, I think. I wasn't sure, so I wanted to clarify that. So you are, is that what it says?
Well,
You'll come back to us for a budget amendment or not?
Yes, I'm saying that. Okay.
See, some of your staff is shaking their head saying yes, so nodding their head, I should say. So, okay, so make clarification, just so that we don't, I think that's one of the concerns that Supervisor Keogh has, is sort of a open book here, open checkbook.
Right.
On the next page, page 13, the last paragraph talks about being unable to find a location for the Community Correction Center. In a couple places, you've mentioned that where there's been undue hardship that made this thing to be drug out for almost a year now to open the. I won't belabor the point too much because I think we sort of beat you up on it the last time a whole lot. But quite frankly, I will just say it is. I think it is a failure of the probation department or somebody, whoever is responsible for getting this thing open, not to get it done. Even the site you're pointing to today on Court Street, I believe, was pointed out from our CEO and the city manager as something that was put out in April as a possibility. So here we are now in September, hoping to get a contract by November to open it by February 1st, which is 15, 16 months after this thing sort of came about. I'm just disappointed by that. You mentioned here on page 23, and Supervisor Baugh alluded to it, that you're going to hire a probation division director to manage the AB 109 program. I guess I'm trying to decide if that's someone have to actually run the program, or is that someone that's going to offset the responsibilities of the executive committee for not getting things done that they were getting done? I'm not quite sure what that position is going to be. Is he going to ramrod the executive committee's directions, or is it some other function of the probation?
No, this is not about the executive committee. This is about putting together the parts of the program that need to be implemented, such as focusing on the establishment of the assessment center. If we need focus on hiring our staff, that's something that we haven't been able to do, we would do that. This is not designed to help redirect what the executive committee is doing. No.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. At the bottom of that page, you talk about what you refer to as your strong accomplishments for 4 basic objectives.
Mm-hmm.
Is that occurring now? Are you doing that?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We are doing that.
Good, thank you. I'm going to page 28, third paragraph, last sentence. And this was a concern I think CEO Lee's had, was that there would be a further burden on our general assistant payments, which comes out of general fund. But if I'm reading this correctly, AB 109 people who need general assistance, that money will come from AB 109 funds?
There's certainly some general assistance funds coming from AB 109.
So that alleviates a little bit your concern about adding that burden to your general fund?
It does. The concern is, though, that we're going to exceed the amount that has been allocated out of 109. And that, if that happens, then it would be my understanding that that will be now an encumbrance upon our general funds.
Yeah. Well, something for you to be wary of, I guess. And then the last thing which Supervisor Keogh referred to, and I strongly agree with him on this one, I find the budget, at least as presented here, I was hoping there'd be some more details, but sort of woefully lacking in detail. His example was a perfect one. Other programs and services, and it just says total cost $1.2 million, and I was really sort of left wondering where that money, I mean, you're asking us to make an approval of a budget of $7.2 million, and here's $1.2 million that all I have is, well, it's going to kind of be used for other programs and services. And you do highlight a number of bullet points of where you'd like to spend some of that money, but it just sort of leaves it very vague to me. And along with that, when I look at the other categories, I'm trying to decide how much of it is programs, how much is personnel costs, how much is operational costs. When I look at, for instance, custody and custody alternatives, jail contract beds is $1.5+ million. Now, it does list that there's 6 people, actually 8 people, full-time equivalents for the sheriff's office, but I don't think that that's going to be $1.5 million. Now, I recognize some of that's for, I think, for jail operations, but I don't know that. Some of it's for the out-of-county beds, but again, those are not spelled out. The compliance team, you've got $608,000. I don't know if that's partly for the sheriff's office, the police department. Again, so just those things where it lists personnel costs, but I can't tell if it's all of its personnel costs or if there's some operational costs, and that's, I found kind of the whole document kind of in that category. So I don't know if you have someone here who wants to explain some more of that or can, but I have some questions. Even as I look at the sort of the summary here, which kind of breaks it down on page 32, supervision, it has post-release community supervision and a compliance team. Now, I would assume that might be all personnel costs, but there might be other things in there. When you get to the custody and alternatives, I mean, like home electronic confinement, I don't know if that's all for the equipment and supplies or that count personnel who are going to oversee the HEC program. So those are the questions that I have. Supervisor Haas?
Thank you. How close are we to finding a reporting center?
The assessment center?
Yeah, assessment center.
The timelines are that we are working with BI to finish their contract for the day report center. That should be signed shortly. We are also working with the landlord at the property list I talked to you about. Once that agreement is signed and ready to go, then it's a matter of just timing the any remodels that are expected with the opening. So our targeted date right now is January 31st.
And then, of course, what I've said all along, these people need jobs when they come here, so hopefully it'll all work out. If they get a job and things are going well for them, they won't be back again. But otherwise, who knows? It's awful. You've got to admit it's awful hard to think ahead about every little thing that's going to happen with this thing. So I personally think you've tried hard, and maybe there's some short steps here, but maybe those can be adjusted as we go along, like you've said. So I think that's what we're working on, something that's new and in progress. So it probably won't be perfect till we get it all figured out, will it? And it may never be perfect.
Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chair Modi. I would like to see you, Mr. Foreman, answer Mr. Kehoe's question in regards to specifically on page 28, and Mr. Modi drew that out again, in terms of your need for emergency financial decisions. And truly, if there is no need, Supervisor Modi kind of pointed out that, well, the year has gone by and we're not there yet. If there truly isn't a need for emergency, then let's open it up to competition. I would like to have that discussion. And then Supervisor Modi, I think you did a great job of stating the fact that the only real, actually a combination of both supervisors, the only real authority we have here is an approval of this document. And you pointed out the fact that the document lacks in terms of transparency and the financial accountability. And you are pointing toward the thought of assessments to make sure that we're actually doing it. So then there are two options. The option is to approve what is in discussion as an inadequate plan, or vote no, which would cause the plan, if I understand it, rejected by a 4/5 majority. The plan would have to come back and answer some of the questions in a more detailed fashion. So I'd like you to discuss that in relationship to the already long delays in the hiring process of a director and in the assessment center.
Sure.
Thank you.
First of all, I mentioned before that this is a significant change in the world of criminal justice. The way criminal justice worked in the past, we arrested everybody we could. We gave them the highest crime that we could attach to the offense that they created, and if we could send them to prison, we sent them to prison. That didn't work. Okay, we filled up the prison. It went way overfilled, and it didn't work. The state could not rehabilitate them, even though that's in their name. They could not rehabilitate them. When they were released, they reoffended. They went right back in and continued the overcrowding process. We were called on by the state to help them out. So yes, it was the state's problem. They had a financial problem. They couldn't manage their prison. Okay, they had records that were dismal. Okay, in terms of recidivism. Okay, they knew that they had partnered already with the probation departments around the state of California, and they received pretty good results. The most significant was in the passing of SB 678, which was an incentive program that if we could actually use our evidence-based experiences that we've already invested in to reduce the number of individuals, offenders that we were supervising from recidivating to the point they had to go back to prison, then we would get some of those savings that the state received. We did very well. And so building upon that success, when realignment was coming around, the probation department and the state were pretty good partners. We felt that the train was coming down the county's way where we're going to have to do something. So they called on us to help out. They knew that the system that we were used to doing was not a good system. We could not just continue to arrest and lock up everybody and make the world safe. And so they knew that there needed to be some flexibility and some creativity, using evidence-based practices, which we hadn't completely settled on, what the services and implementation of programs would be, but they knew that there was a better way, so they allowed the flexibility for each of the counties to make up their own plan. Every county's plan will have some uniqueness to it. Every county plan, and many of them anyway, have some similarities to them. Day report centers is one of those. It's a popular concept to focus on individuals that need that daily intensive treatment. So Shasta County accepted that task. From the probation department's point of view, I will say we're accepting it willingly. We will succeed. We are succeeding. We are supervising every one of the individuals that are coming out, and we are keeping the community safe. In terms of recidivism, I have reported over and over again about the number of convictions, which is the way we determine recidivism. There have been 14 of 300 individuals have been convicted of new crimes since this started. When we evaluate it a different way by the number of bookings, so this is affected by other agencies outside of us that are doing arrests and putting them in the jail. They may stay, they may not. When you evaluate the 70, I think is the number that I referred to, about 47 or less than half of them were in there for new offenses. When you compare that number to the number that we have been supervising, which at that time was 277, that recidivism number comes out to 4%. We are succeeding. Now, we also know that there's some places that we've failed, and that is the number of people that are failing to appear in court. We had some problems with this bed space in the jail that we couldn't solve in the first year. Some of those things came down to things that were out of our control. The ability to hire new staff is not something we completely control. We do not have a bunch of individuals in Shasta County that meets our standards, and lowering our standards is not the best way to manage hiring those staff. So we've had to struggle with hiring staff. In the probation department, we had 7 separate positions, hierarchies of positions that we're filling for. We're in a constant mode of recruitment and hiring staff. We are succeeding in some areas. We're providing opportunities for people within the probation department to grow up a ladder. to invest in probation and stay there. And we're doing that. The system that we're trying to create is something that is complex. It's not simple. It's something that's different. So there's a lot of structure that has to be built around that. We had to create a system so that we could evaluate and assess the individuals that we're not used to supervising into our operation. And so we using our current tools, which we've already invested in, the static risk and the offender needs guide. We created that system with and combined it with the information we're receiving from the state. And we evaluated as early as we could what the type of individuals we were going to be working with and the number of individuals. So we quickly had to transfer, promote, do whatever we needed to do because hiring was going to slow, people from our department to get into those positions so that we could adequately supervise the day that they showed up on our door, work with them in their terms and conditions, evaluate their assessment and their needs, and provide services. We did that as soon as we could.
So recognizing the obvious successes that exist and saying thank you for those, there are some deficiencies that have been pointed out by members of the board. How can you address those? Would there be the ability to perhaps simply take this back, bring it back to us in a couple of weeks with some of those issues addressed? Is that a possibility, recognizing the need for some more clarity financially,
Well,
contractual obligations, et cetera?
My personal commitment to you is that any question that you have, whether you give it to me individually, whether you give it to me here front, we will come back and respond to that. The purpose of this plan, I think it took us, we had the skeleton of a plan back in May, ready to go before the board, okay? It was trying to provide more detail and scrutiny into this report that took us all this time to get it in front of you, okay? That's not because we don't desire to put a plan from you. That's not because we're not committed to putting together the best plan. We don't know exactly. And if I have to say that from my point of view, I don't know exactly what is necessary to solve the realignment problem. We need flexibility. You call it being untransparent. I call it we need some flexibility to be able to grow the system into what we want. The flexibility in managing the authority you gave to do $5,000 so that we could get some programs and systems going. Well, that's working, okay? We're now expending about $6,000 a month in these programs. What we're trying to do before we make the contracts is identify where the numbers are so that we can identify what the contract need is. And so that part of it's taken some time. But the system is working, and it just takes a little time to get going. And I'll tell you a little bit, too, you know, being the Chief Probation Officer and the chair of the CCP, it's very easy for me to go up here and take the bullets from the criticism that's coming from all kinds of different directions. I can understand it, okay, and I accept that. But when I'm accused of not hiring the probation manager, that's falsely wrong, okay? As soon as you gave me the approval, I submitted the request to fill that position, and it was denied, okay? In regards to the assessment center, we have reviewed, visited several sites, and we've had several sites, 4 in particular, that we liked as sites to go, and we did not get the support to move it further. I couldn't even bring it to you at this point, okay? We had one site that's down on Placer Road that we made a specific recommendation that we wanted that site. We wanted it a lot, okay? And we made that request to have it reviewed by our county staff, and they went in, we got the permission, they reviewed it, and it was sometime after that we were denied. If we would have been given that position, we would have the assessment center going. After that, we were given several more for us to review, and we did. And when the best one came up, we've been working on the site in the 1405, 1423 for quite some time. I can assure you that everything that's within our control that we are doing. And one more comment, too, in regards to performance measures. Our last meeting was specifically on coming up with performance measures for this plan so we could present it to you on the 28th. There was one person in that committee that was concerned about the number of performance measures that were lacking. And I asked that individual, I says, do you have your performance measures? Do you have them ready so we can put them in there? The answer was, no, I haven't had time. And for that individual to then, after we agreed to it at that point, to submit plans for performance measures afterwards and says the committee didn't take care of it, that's not a problem of the chair. That's a different kind of a problem.
What I hear, if I can interject here, is I hear frustration that echoes the concern that Supervisor Kehoe plainly stated that who's in charge. And I think you probably stated your case very well. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll just take this to the board, not directed to you, Mr. Foreman. My concern as a member of the board is for the board to find a viable and effective path forward. I'm really moved by your comments, Chair Modi, in terms of the financial needs and clarity. I think we need to discuss these things. I'm glad for the conversation to come out because we can't ignore them. This is our job and our responsibility. I would look to the board for direction on how to move forward in the right way.
Perhaps I can help you. In the staff report on alternatives, it does say that the program, the budget, the plan has to be approved by 4/5 of the board, otherwise it or I should say rejected by 4/5 vote, otherwise automatically approved. But in there it also says the plan, the board could provide input and feedback on the plan before it's referred back to the CCP. And if that would occur, it would delay them, but certainly that's something that they've offered up as a possibility. So that is one way to move forward, is to send it back to them for further clarification and stuff. Supervisor Kehoe.
Thank you, Chair Modi. I think this has been a very productive discussion this morning. To get us to move forward, I'm going to move that this plan be rejected by the Board of Supervisors and returned for amplification and to answer some of the questions that this board has brought up this morning.
Second.
Well, it's been moved and seconded. Supervisor Hawes.
How much time do you think that they need?
Yeah, you need to ask Chief Foreman.
How much, if you take this back and revamp it a bit to get it to the point that the board's looking for, how much time do you think that would need?
What I would request is that, I was unable to write all the specific questions down. I would ask that the board list those questions for us. And, we meet monthly. We have the option to meet more times than that. This is trying to think that we could provide. I'm sure that we could provide it in 2 months if that's what you're willing. But I would also request that we have permission to move forward with one thing specifically, and that is to hire the probation division manager. That right now is related to the plan, and so I would hope that would be move forward.
That's actually a different agenda item. That's item R8, and so what we're talking about here is R7, the adoption of the plan.
I have a question for County Council. It's been suggested that we reject this, but I thought one of the alternatives could be, I don't know, and maybe it isn't, is that rather than just outright rejecting it, can we just request it sort of like delay action and just send it back to them for more discussion? Or if we choose to delay, does that automatically approve it? Because if we don't disapprove it, it's such a screwed up system. But
It is an incredibly awkwardly written statute. As I read it, that in the wording of it, it says that the plan is deemed accepted unless the board rejects it by a vote of 4/5 vote, in which case the plan goes back to the Community Corrections Partnership for further consideration. I would suggest that if the board wants it to go back to the Community Corrections Partnership, it would need to reject it by a 4/5 vote.
okay, thank you. I think I just add for you, Chief Foreman, I think the couple, you asked about not being able to write down all the questions. There were a lot of comments, but I think if I can summarize it, and you guys tell me if I missed anything here, I think the couple of things that we're looking for is a little more clarity and specificity as to the numbers in the budget. For instance, on the alternative programs and stuff, it's 1.2 million plus for whatever. And I understand the need for flexibility, but perhaps it might be categorized into, you know, it's 100,000 for this, it's 150 for that, you know, and maybe you break it down into those 8 or 10 categories you have, with the, you know, realizing that 6 months from now or 3 months from now, you might come back and say, you know what, we found out that we need less of this and more of that. We'd like to augment or alter our budget and do that. That would at least give us some idea that when we tell the public we're going to authorize you, someone to spend $1.2 million, there's some sort of gatekeeper there saying, okay, if you get up to that amount, you're going to come back and talk to us. That might be one area that I think that we know you're working on the day reporting center, so I think that's coming forward. So I don't know if that, I mean, that's there. Was there another specific area that you were looking, oh, some goals and objectives, I believe, that you're looking, a little more clarity on. Some goals and objectives, I think, that we were looking for, that we can, sort of measurement goals, I think that Supervisor Keyhill's looking for.
I would also like, and maybe this could be a combined effort with Mr. Cruz and Mr. Lees and Mr. Foreman, I'd like the question answered for the public. Who is in charge? Who is accountable for the expenditure this year of $7,653,000?
Well, I think we are in the end.
Well, I'm not sure we are.
Well, we are, I think if we approve the budget, I think we're on the hook.
If we approve this plan, we may be.
We're making the
And
decision.
maybe that's why
here.
we're not approving it.
And I think that's, you know, I think that's, you raised a very good point, and you've made it, and I think Chief Foreman recognizes it as well. It's the way this state set this up. Whether you like it or not, they deemed you the guy at the head of the spear, and, you know, and you got the tiger by the tail, and good luck. And that's what they did to you, and I recognize that. Supervisor Hartman.
Well, first I want to comment on Supervisor Kehoe's question there about who's responsible, and I fully agree that it does come back to the board. And Mr. Foreman, I think that's why we're asking for a little more clarification, and that's why I will support the rejection of the plan, even though I don't like that terminology that we're using. I think you've done a lot of work in developing this plan. I certainly understand your need for the flexibility, and I don't think we're trying to hamper that. I think we just need to have a little more clarification and understanding in our minds before we go forward on it.
Supervisor Hawes.
Yeah, I don't think this would take 2 months. It probably, what we're asking for is not that huge. So you probably have a list of those things that came up to those totals somewhere already.
Okay.
So I just think it could be done a lot quicker than that. Get back to us and we'll get by it and keep up what you're doing. I mean, we haven't had a wreck yet, and I think we're moving in the right direction, so.
Thank you.
One other observation, Chairman Modi. I would like to see a re-examination of the model that is being presented on page 28 relative to other programs and services.
So could you clarify what you're looking for, more discussion on those bullet points, or a reevaluation of them? Or?
I see this to me is blank check government. I'm not supportive of that. I am supportive of a competition in the marketplace.
Oh, okay.
And that's I'd like to see some discussion on that.
More for the RFP
Right.
process. Yeah, okay. So I think those are about the 3 or 4 questions that really the board's looking for, Mr. Foreman. Okay, I'll sum up just for one last thing before we ask for the vote here. Chief, I know personally for myself, and I suspect for the whole board, we want this program to be successful. Absolutely. And we've all talked about the state dumped it on our laps. And Kurt Starman talked about it in his deal where they think it's a great success because they got rid of the problem, and that's exactly what they did. And they did a one-size-fits-all for all 58 counties and gave it to us, which in turn gave it to you. You know, I sense your frustration. I could debate on some of the points you made, but I don't think that serves any purpose at this point. I just would tell you that I think the board is as frustrated as you are that this program has not been able to move fast enough, quickly enough. But I think we all want it to be successful because the very issue you raised, the way you were doing it, was pointless. It's a failed system. It's obvious. We're worse than most states in the United States as far as recidivism. We've got to do something different. I hope this program's the answer. I want it to be the answer. We want you to be successful in the end. Have a motion and a second to reject the plan at this point. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. R8, approve a salary resolution and budget amendment to continue the Shasta County Public Safety Realignment Implementation Plan. How do we continue this if we just rejected this other one? Can we do that?
Julie Hope, analyst in the CAO's office. Yes, in my opinion, you can do that. And in fact, you've approved most of the budget that's in the plan already in our fiscal year 12-13 budget. So getting those budget details that you're requesting will be very easy. So we should be able to get back to you very quickly on a better detailed breakdown of the budget that is in the plan. All the new positions have already been approved in the budget except for the division director, and that's why we're asking for that separately today. Also with a budget amendment to increase some appropriations for salary and benefits in probation's budget offset with their restricted AB 109 realignment fund balance. That budget amendment is reflected in the plan, and the $800,000 carryover at the end of 12-13 includes the funding for this probation division director and the use of that fund balance to fund that position. And then the other recommendation in R8 that we would like for you to consider is to move a public safety service officer from the jail to the work release budget because we're transferring that program administration out to Breslauer, and to move those funds from the jail to the work release budget, and to defund 2 correctional officers that should have been moved to the work release budget for the work release program during the fiscal year 12-13 budget but weren't. And instead of deleting them, we just would like you to consider defunding them at this point in time for future consideration depending on how realignment works out.
Questions of Ms. Hope? Supervisor Boff?
For Mr. Lees or counsel, if you prefer to defer the question, I don't believe that our prior vote was meant to delay action.
No,
it's
and
meant
we
to
can go
clarify
forward.
action.
Right.
Are we on solid ground moving forward?
Yes.
I'd like to move approval of staff's recommendations.
Second. Okay.
Moved and second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Hope.
Thank you.
And we are adjourned.
It was another very interesting meeting.